Good evening. I'm David Clement, filling in for Teresa Skubik, and this is Forum Daily for Tuesday, January 21st. Trudeau cabinet ministers say that Canada will be ready to retaliate after U.S. President Donald Trump put a new date on his threat to impose steep tariffs on Canada and Mexico. Mr. Trump pledged in his inaugural address that tariffs would be coming and said that foreign countries would be paying the trade penalties, even though those taxes are currently paid by domestic importers and often passed along to consumers. While the avalanche of executive orders he signed did not include the Canadian tariffs, he said the 25% levies would come February 1st.
We're thinking in terms of 25% on Mexico and Canada because they're allowing vast numbers of people. Canada's a very bad abuser also. Vast numbers of people to come in and fentanyl to come in.
When do you think you would enact those?
I think February 1st.
Are you planning on giving notice of that?
I think we'll do it February 1st.
25% on both, sir?
Sir, on each.
On each.
Yeah.
And speaking from a cabinet retreat in Quebec, Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly says the government will continue to work on preventing tariffs, but that it's also working on retaliation and its long-term response.
The thing is we've been doing the work to prevent tariffs. Just if you look at whom we've talked to, the three of us, in the past 2 months, we've talked to the incoming U.S. Secretary of Commerce, the incoming U.S. Secretary of State, the incoming U.S. Secretary of Energy, the number 2 of the Republicans, which is John Thune, the leader of the majority in the Senate, the chair of the Foreign Affairs Committee for the Republicans in the Senate, Jim Rich, Lindsey Graham, who is a senator very close to Trump. We've been also engaged with the border czar, which is Tom Homan. We've been in contact with so many different key Republican leaders. We've been also in contact with key Democrats. Jonathan Wilkinson, the Minister also of Energy, has been working the Hill last week as well. So we're acting as Team Canada, and we'll continue to advocate for a win-win relationship and meanwhile defend Canada's interests.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau spoke to the media today for the first time since Donald Trump returned to the presidency, addressing retaliatory tariffs and the cost for Canadian consumers.
First of all, as I've said, everything is on the table, and I support the principle of dollar-for-dollar matching tariffs. It's something that we are absolutely going to be looking at if that is how they move forward. The bottom line, as you say, is that import tariffs, like the 25% that President Trump is proposing, are actually paid or would be paid by American consumers. And if and when Canada needs to respond with equivalent tariffs on imports from the United States, those would be paid by Canadian consumers. That's why we will look, as we have in the past, at things that have replacements for Canadian consumers that wouldn't be tariffed. The example from last time was Heinz's ketchup being replaced by French's ketchup, because French's was still using Canadian tomatoes in its ketchup.
Mr. Trudeau says that Canada is focused on demonstrating that Canada is a reliable partner, and he says that if Mr. Trump wants to usher in a, quote, golden age for his country, it'll need more energy, critical minerals, and resources that Canada is ready to provide. And another politician that supports dollar-for-dollar tariffs is federal NDP leader Jagmeet Singh, who spoke today at the CLC Political Action Conference, reiterating his point that strength is all that President Trump will respond to.
And so I want to defend it. I want to fight like hell to defend Canadian jobs. I want to defend our country. And the only way we do that against Trump is with force. We have to fight back. We have to make it known. If you pick a fight with us, it's not just going to hurt Canadians. It's also going to hurt Americans. It's not good for workers. We have to make sure the pain is felt is the only thing they will understand. We've got to respond with retaliatory tariffs, dollar for dollar.
Mr. Singh also went as far as to say that Canada should block the flow of critical minerals to the U.S.
We also have to consider, and I've said we got to do this, bringing in a block ending the flow of critical minerals. We know that that's something that they need. The States needs it desperately, and especially And one of the best buds of the president, Elon Musk, needs those critical minerals for his batteries. So let's hit them where it counts. Let's fight back and defend our jobs here in Canada.
All right, when we come back, U.S. President Donald Trump pardons over 1,500 people convicted in connection with the riots on January 6th. We'll be right back. Donald Trump's second inauguration seemed normal, but there were concerns about American democracy lingering just beneath the surface.
Relating to events that occurred on January 6, 2021.
Okay, and how many people is this?
I think this order will apply to approximately 1,500 people, sir.
So this is January 6th. These are the hostages. Approximately 1,500 for a pardon.
Yes.
Full pardon.
Full pardon or commutation?
Full pardon. We have about 6 commutations in there where we're doing further research. Nice to see you again. So this is a big one. Anything you want to explain about this? We hope they get them. We hope they come out tonight, frankly. They're expecting it.
Mr. Trump himself made those apparent when he followed his speech that urged unity and optimism with one to supporters, in which he vowed to pardon January 6th rioters. And then last night, he did just that. He issued blanket pardons or commutations for more than 1,500 people convicted of crimes in connection with the attack on the U.S. Capitol. And since the ceremony was moved inside the Capitol Rotunda due to cold weather, it took place in the very halls Trump supporters stormed on January 6, 2021, as they acted on Mr. Trump's lies about a stolen election and tried to stop Joe Biden from taking office. 3 Quebec men have been charged with conspiracy for allegedly planning to help smuggle people into the United States. The RCMP believed the suspects conspired to bring a group of people from Montreal to an unguarded location along the border at least one occasion. They are accused of charging each person $4,000. The suspects are between 24 and 33 years old. And the FBI and Department of Homeland Security have confirmed a U.S. Border Patrol agent was fatally shot Monday on a highway in northern Vermont. In a statement, the agency said a suspect in the shooting was also killed. A second suspect was injured and another was taken into custody during the encounter on Interstate 91 in Coventry, about 32 kilometers from the Canadian border. The FBI says that the officer died in the line of duty and that there's no ongoing threat to the public. In Washington, the Senate has confirmed Marco Rubio as Secretary of State, giving Donald Trump his first member of his cabinet.
On this vote, the yeas are 99, the nays are 0. The nomination of the great Senator Marco Rubio from the state of Florida is confirmed. Under the previous order, the motion to reconsider is considered made and laid upon the table, and the President will be immediately notified of the Senate's action.
The vote was unanimous as senators went back to work Monday night in the Capitol after Mr. Trump's inauguration. Rubio is considered among the least controversial of Mr. Trump's nominees, while action on other Trump cabinet picks, including former combat veteran and Fox News host Pete Hegseth for Defense Secretary, is expected later in the week. It is generally typical for the Senate to confirm some of a new president's top cabinet positions on Inauguration Day. And Environment Minister Steven Guilbeault says that it's deplorable that President Trump is again pulling the U.S. out of the 2015 Paris Accord.
Yeah, it is deplorable that the President of the United States has decided to pull out of the Paris Agreement. It is unfortunately not the first time that he's done that. He's done that in his first presidency. The Paris Agreement is larger than one country. It's 194 countries, and we have collectively continued working to fight climate change despite the absence of the United States. And one should forget that despite the fact that the federal government no longer seems interested in fighting climate change, we see a lot of support within U.S. states, municipalities, the private sector, and it is quite ironic that the president would do that as California is going through one of the worst forest fire season in its history.
The Paris Agreement is a voluntary global climate pact where nations set targets to curb their greenhouse gas emissions. All right, when we come back, former Housing Minister Sean Fraser announces that he is backing Mark Carney for Liberal leader. The three frontrunners in the Liberal leadership race back away from supporting the carbon tax, and Scotiabank has withdrawn from the Net Zero Banking Alliance. That and more when we come back. This morning, former Housing Minister Sean Fraser announced that he's backing Mark Carney for Liberal leader.
The race is on to select the next leader of the Liberal Party and Prime Minister of Canada, and I'm supporting Mark Carney. You know, when I chat with folks around home, or frankly, in any part of the country, they tell me that they're pretty frustrated because they do not want to elect Pierre Poilievre as Prime Minister. But if they're going to take another chance on us, they want to see some real change from the Liberals. Well, my answer is Mark Carney. He's got the ability to bring a new economic focus to our politics, to work to create jobs for families so people can put food on the table and keep a roof over their heads. He's a seasoned professional who has the ability to go toe-to-toe with our American counterparts, especially given all the noise we're hearing south of the border these days.
Former Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland says that running for the Liberal leadership has been a real liberation. She says that it's great to be able to say exactly what she thinks and in her own voice. Ms. Freeland gave an interview to Toronto television station CP24 as she tries to distance herself from the unpopular Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. And the three frontrunners in the Liberal leadership race are backing away from the current government's Keystone climate policy. Chrystia Freeland has vowed to scrap the consumer carbon price because Canadians no longer support it, while Karina Gold has pledged to freeze the carbon price. Former Bank of Canada Governor Mark Carney, however, has been less clear about his plans, but he has said that if it were to end, there would need to be something equally as effective. And when pressed on the issue, Environment Minister Steven Guilbeault admitted that the price on carbon is unpopular, chalking it up to apparent lies told by Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre.
There are two separate components to it. There is a consumer carbon pricing and there is an industrial carbon pricing. Obviously, largely because of the disinformation and lies, frankly, of Pierre Poilievre, the consumer price on pollution has become very unpopular, and I understand it. I have defended it for the last 3 years. It is a very effective tool to fight climate change. It's not the only one. We have more than 100 measures in our climate action plan that is helping Canada, for the first time in its history, reduce greenhouse gas emissions as our economy is growing. Should we not have that particular tool, there are other things we can do to fight climate change.
Scotiabank is the latest major Canadian bank to withdraw from the Net Zero Banking Alliance. The bank joins BMO, National Bank, TD Bank Group, and CIBC in leaving the alliance, not long after 6 of the U.S.'s largest banks did exactly that. The UN-backed initiative aims to accelerate climate action among financial institutions. And a Scotiabank spokesperson said the bank is still committed to delivering its own climate transition plan and remains committed to meeting the requirements of regulators around the globe. Ontario Premier Doug Ford says that he needs a new mandate to deal with 4 years of a Donald Trump presidency in the U.S. The province's next election isn't scheduled until June 2026, but Mr. Ford has left the door open to calling a vote before then. Doug Ford gave one of his clearest signals yet, saying that he will need a clear mandate from the people of Ontario to fight tariffs. And Canada's Immigration Department is bracing for widespread job cuts over the next 3 years. A memo says that about 3,300 jobs will be cut, affecting every sector and region across the department. About 20% of the reductions will hit permanent employees, with affected workers beginning to receive letters in mid-February. Both unions and Immigration Department workers urge the government to cut down on outside contracting instead of cutting staff. And salmonella linked to a recall of mini pastries may have infected nearly 1,600 people. The Public Health Agency of Canada says the calculation is based on its estimation that for every reported case, there are about 26 more in the community. The agency issued an outbreak notice Saturday stating 61 cases of salmonella were linked to Sweet Cream brand mini pastries. The treats were served at bakeries, hotels, restaurants, cafeterias, hospitals, retirement residences, and catered events. Canada's annual inflation rate ticked down to 1.8% in December. Statistics Canada says that's thanks in large part to the federal government's temporary tax break, with food bought from restaurants and alcohol bought from stores contributing the most to the deceleration. Without the tax break, the annual inflation rate would have risen to 2.3%. All eyes are now on the Bank of Canada as it's set to make an interest rate decision next week. All right, when we come back from the break, we'll be turning to an increase in the overheating of battery-powered devices on airplanes. Safety science group UL Standards reports that overheating of electronics powered by lithium-ion batteries rose 28% from 2019 to 2023. Battery-powered devices are overheating more often on planes, and that is raising safety concerns because of the fire danger. The risk comes from lithium-ion batteries that power many portable electronics. Safety science group UL Standards says that overheating incidents rose 28% from 2019 to 2023. E-cigarettes and power banks overheated most often, and about a quarter of passengers surveyed say they put those devices in checked baggage. UL's director of Primary Insights joined us to explain the trend.
I think the important thing is, lithium-ion batteries can overheat in any environment, right? So I think our report really focuses on aviation because it's, a very kind of contained environment, right? And you're 30,000 feet in the air, so certainly the risk factors and how you mitigate that and how you deal with and how people react to it, those change, right? So the batteries themselves, I think to be very clear and something that we really expound on our report, these batteries are by and large very safe, right? These events of thermal runaway, which is the overheating of batteries, is rare, but they are very high sort of impact when they do go into thermal runaway. So various reasons batteries can go into thermal runaway. The common one is, the device is either damaged, overcharged, or when it was manufactured, it wasn't manufactured properly, right? So there are various reasons that can go into it. So that's why we always recommend really looking for some best practices. One is looking for that certification mark on batteries or devices that you buy. If it has the UL stamp on it, then it's been certified to safety standards, and that means it's been tested through performance. It's been tested through various other environments where it could fail, and UL has really made sure that they don't do so. Other things that can happen, let's say you have a power bank, which many people travel with when they're traveling. You drop it, right? It hits a hard floor, and somehow the battery gets damaged in a way. And so you may not notice anything happen right away, but overusing it or charging it or using it to charge other devices kind of creates any kind of heat, right, in the device. So eventually that can lead into some kind of a smoking event, or the battery itself bulges. So, various factors, but oftentimes it tends to be the device has been damaged or been overcharged or reused. So those are kind of the factors that really lead into a device going into an overheat or a smoke or, a kind of an explosive environment like that. Nothing about the batteries or the products themselves have dramatically changed right over the past 5 years or, that kind of period. What's really changed in the aviation space, I think, in the last couple of years is just increased volume of people traveling, right? So that's one factor. The second factor is really, as we're all traveling, and I'm sure you do it, I do it too, when we're traveling, we carry lots of these devices with us, right? So we've got a smartphone, potentially a laptop, a tablet, wireless headphones, let's say power banks, and many, several other types of devices that are now powered with lithium-ion batteries, even things like rechargeable, like toothbrushes, right? So a lot of people carry those and they check them in their bags. Many people use e-cigarettes to bring them on the plane themselves with that. And so it's really multiple sort of trends kind of converging. We're reliant on devices that are powered by lithium-ion batteries. Travel volume has certainly increased over the last few years, specifically after the post-pandemic period. So you kind of have multiple sort of trends converging, and that's really why we're seeing, increase in the sort of the incident trends that we picked up from our trip program. I think, the key thing to really understand from our report is that, kind of two things, right? So the passenger behavior that we've been picking up, it's, really, we've been running these surveys for over a year now, And so we kind of constantly track them over time. So it's not just a kind of a snapshot in time. It's really a data that we've been collecting over the course of the past year. And it's really kind of clear, right, that passenger behavior shows that they simply don't know there's an issue, right? And if they knew, the full extent of the issue, they really understood the potential consequences. Many of the lithium-ion powered products that we see that are getting put into checked luggage, I think passengers would opt not to do it. So, it becomes kind of well, how do you solve a problem if you don't know there is one, right? So that's where the challenge really comes in. And, having not just kind of done this in vacuum where we're just looking at passenger behavior or just looking at incident data, we've actually gone on and talked to the industry, right? So talking to cabin crew, talking to people professional in the aviation industry, one thing that's really become clear to us is the messaging that we're giving to passengers. So from our perspective, consistency, context, and clarity towards passenger messaging are really critical across the board, right? So whether it's offering cabin crew consistent equipment to train on and having on board, as well as to giving passengers sort of clear and repeated messages throughout the entire travel experience, from the moment you check in for your flight on an app to the moment you're about to board on the plane, to how to really be responsible as they travel with their devices. So, like I said, some of the best practices that I recommended earlier, but these are some simple ways that we think that incidences can be reduced kind of going forward.
That's your look at national and international news for today. Good night, Canada.